All right. Um, Welcome. It is week 3, and we are gonna find the chat window so I can have it open here. Okay. We're in week 3. So today we're gonna do a couple things. We're gonna talk about the assignments for this week, what's expected. We're gonna spend a little bit of time being very, very specific on what I'm expecting the final project, because this is the week. This is the week. If you're gonna do the final project, this is the week you must begin it. Because if you don't begin it this week, then you're gonna be like, pulling your hair out trying to get to the end with this thing. And then we'll go over the code for this week. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. All right. Get this over. Okay, so let's see. This week, when we go over the code, we're gonna be doing a little bit of we're gonna do some review from last week and add some new stuff in. Um, we're going to talk about the SQL clauses, the comparison operators, the and or operators. That's what this week is. We actually talked about that last week. We're going to talk a little bit about subqueries and why we use them. We're going to play with the where commands and with the subqueries. And that's pretty much this week is. This week is just playing with the where command and subqueries and comparison operators, things like that. Exercises, you guys are doing exercises fine. This week, I think, becomes code in earnest. So you're going to have 5 code questions to answer. With a 25 point, that might be 4. Forget. We're trying to bring everything up to 5 to make it easier, make it 5 points each, except 6.25 points each. But we're slowly working our way through that. Quiz at the quiz and the paper this week. If you are doing the final exam, the final project, ignore this. This is not what you're going to do. If you're doing the final exam, this is what you do. It wants you to write a paragraph or 2 where you're using the where clause with the in operator and why it's best to do it that way. So again, this is just to show that you understand what we're talking about with the where clauses this week. But again, if you're doing the final report or the final paper, this just becomes here's how I'm doing on my project this week. All right. Okay, so let's talk about this. So the final project. When you're looking for the final project, because it starts in week 3, that's where they put it. You don't turn it in until week 13 or sooner. Also, for anyone who's not watching this video, um, you're going to do a lot more work than you need to. I did not design this course. I just teach it, and I'm allowed to modify it as I see fit. And I am not a fan on how they did this final project. So I do it my own way. So I'm going to give you my requirements for the final exam, the final paper, and the final project, and then that's what you need to turn in. There'll be those who, hey, first name is with a D, don't know Mr. Carson, brother Carson.
David Carson, yes.
How you doing?
Very
We're just
good.
Yeah, we're just talking about the final. So I don't know if you've been. I don't know if you've been here with us before. So in this course, there is the option of a final exam or a final project. You can do
Yeah, I
whichever
heard
one
that
you
in
want.
the
Yeah,
first week, yes.
yeah. So
Going from the
this.
project.
Mhm. So this is the week I talk about the final project and how to do it and what's in it and how and what's entailed. So for you two guys and anyone who's watching this video, you'll know what really needs to be turned in. I always enjoy grading the final projects and looking at the people who did it according to this as opposed to what I wanted and know they put in like 8 more hours work than needed to be. So, okay, so when you're here, if you go here to the final part, you click this little link here. This takes you to all the information you need to how to do the final project. Okay. These are all modeling interfaces, modeling tutorials, reverse engineering. This is all stuff I'm going to show you. Don't worry about any of this. What we do in class on Tuesdays, and what we do in data when I teach you database design and how to do that stuff, that's all you really need for this. The code that we talk about, how to design a database, and your own imagination. So here's what I actually expect from you. So I'm going to put in open up a new pad here. Okay, so this is what this said. This is not what I want. So here's what I want from you. The first thing I want is an ERD. That stands for entity relationship diagram.
So you're only sharing your web browser, not your whole screen, so we can't see your pad.
I thought I did the whole screen. Let me see this again. Entire screen. Is that better? Can you see my notepad now?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. So that's the first one I want is an entity relationship diagram, and I'll show you how to make those. This is how, when you design a database, there are a couple ways to do it. I like doing it in Workbench because there's a place where you can design it table wise, and then you can generate the code to build it from there. So I'll show you that in a minute. So that's the first thing. That's an entity relationship diagram. It must have 10 to 12 tables. Don't go more than 12 tables. If you hit 8 or 9, that's fine too. The reason why, and here's the thing. So I've discovered in my many years of designing databases, once you hit 10 tables, if you start adding tables, the next time you stop and see what's going on, you're going to be at like 30, 40 tables. Because once you get into the role of putting tables into a diagram, you're like 30 tables later, it's like, where'd the time go? Where did all the tables be? I think I told you guys a couple weeks ago when I used to do it, I taught an in-person class many, many years ago in database design, and the 4 walls of my classroom were all dry erase boards. And I would start in the northwest corner and I'd work all the way around. And we'd have, by the time the class was done, we had a table, and the class was 2.5 hours. We'd have a database that was 60 to 80 tables. Because they can explode once you understand how the data flows and how you need to normalize it. Next week when we actually design the database together, I'll talk normalization at that point. I'll bring normalization is basically, so let me mention it now. Normalization is making sure that you don't have any duplicate data in the database. It also means that the data in the table refers to the name of the table and nothing else. So a database is a very, very organized structure. If you have a customer database, the only information in there has to deal with that specific customer. So you wouldn't have products the customer bought in there. You wouldn't have anything along those lines. You just have like the person's name, the phone number, address, all that would point directly to that person. So 10 to 12 tables in the ERD. The next thing I need is the code to create the database. And all objects. If you have created your ERD in the Workbench, there is a thing that's called Forward Engineer. You click that and it just writes the code for you. I strongly suggest you use that. The next thing I need, and this is in the order that I think you should do them, not in the order this order that you should do them. The first thing you do is the ERD. The second thing you need to do is generate the code. The next thing you do is to create six to 8 test user case scenarios. What's a user case? Okay. When we design databases and applications, they're for someone to use. We want someone to use this database. And in this database, we have a lot of information put into tables that the average person looking at won't make sense of, because we've got a customer table and an orders table and a products table and a manufacturer's table and a distributor's table and a sales table and a employee table and a customer table, and a store table. I got like 40 or 50 tables that all lead into one thing for the customer to do a shopping experience. So a user case scenario is we want to create queries that we think the customer or the user of the application would want to use to get the data out in a way that they would do it. So I think the one I was talking about last week, that I had a student a couple of years ago, that designed a database and application that not only kept the inventory of his food storage, but it also had a recipe book attached to it. So he had a recipe book and his food storage in one application, which I advised him not to do because it was a lot of work, but he wanted to do it, and it did really, really cool. So when he did his use cases, he would do things like, what items in my food inventory are near expiration? And the query was like, select items from inventory where expiration date is less than or equal to the current date, or whatever it is. He had a query that was, show me all recipes that I can make with my dehydrated potatoes. And that query would pull up all the recipes that were in the recipe book. Show me every recipe I have currently that I can make with what I have on hand. And that would be a query, and he'd write the query and that information come out. So that's what I'm talking about, user case. I want you guys to think about how a user would consume this data and what questions they would answer, and I want you to provide the answer for them. Does that make sense? Does it make sense? Okay. After that, I need the insert statements.
So you want us to populate the data so you can replicate what we're doing on your side. Okay.
Correct. So here's how I grade it. The first thing I do is I look at your ERD and I see if you've got normalization, if your foreign keys are good, if on paper your database is the work of art that I want it to be, or the way I think it should be. The next thing I do is I take that code that you created to create the database and the objects, and I run it. And if it works, we're good. Then I take your insert statements and I run that to populate the data in the database. And then I run your test cases to see if your logic works. The reason why I say do the test cases and then do the data in the tables is because you only need to put enough data in there for me to pull 3 or 4 rows to make sure it works. So you don't need to, if you have 10 tables in your diagram, you don't have to put 30 rows in data in each of them. You just have to put enough data in there that I will get a response to any query that you give me to run. Okay. So it ends up, I try to make this very, very simple, but I want it to be very challenging at the same time. Writing insert statements isn't challenging. Writing insert statements is right-clicking I'll show you how to do it. You right-click the workbench. It gives you the score, and you just put it in there. And writing insert statements is you can train a gerbil to do it. The queries are what I care about. The use cases, the database, the ERD, that's what I care about. The insert statements are an ends to a mean. The fifth thing I need, and this is, I make this optional because it's funny, because the rubric thing, this is a requirement for the actual project that they have here. But there is nowhere in the rubric to grade for it. So I kind of make this optional because I don't care about this as much, but what they want to make sure in the project is that you understand how the front-end application ties back to the database. So I want you to create a mock-up of one aspect of the application that consumes the database. Okay, meaning, so if you had if we're going back to the example of the recipe / food storage, he had a page on his application that was a drop down of all the ingredients that you would choose one, and then a drop down of expiration date, drop down of quantity. Like, he had all these different drop downs. So what he did was he just pulled out MS Paint and he kind of mocked up what the page would look like and did the text box. Said this text box ties back to this table in the database. This text box ties to this database. This text return box returns the query from this query into this table, into that. I don't need to actually see it work. I don't need any kind of like fancy open up some kind of coding interface and create it. All I need is like get crayons and a piece of paper, and that's cool for me. I just want to see that you understand how the front end connects to the back end. That's all. And the last part is a PowerPoint or a video, 2 to 3 minutes long, 3 to 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes long, presenting the project. That's it. I do that because if this were an in-person class, the last 3 weeks of class would be everyone getting up in front of the class and presenting their project. Because not only do you need to be able to create a project like this and create a database, you need to be able to verbalize it and use words to describe it to people who may not understand what's going on in the world. How databases work. For example, in my other job right now, I'm looking to change the entire infrastructure of how the databases work, like just change everything. And I've got to explain to people who haven't touched a computer technically in about 25 years. So, the way I explain to them is I use a lot about how much it costs and how much it doesn't cost. They like money, I will talk money. But I want you to prepare a PowerPoint presentation or a 3 to 5 minute video just walking me through the project. Please make sure that all of the, so when you get these done, you're going to zip them up and attach them in a zip file to the assignment in the grade book or in week 3. So you'll go here into week 3. It's right here, and where is it? There's a part here that you publish it in. To view as a student, that's what I have to do. If I look at it as you guys, you do the start assignment, and then you'll upload it here. Okay. If you can't upload it here, if there's something wrong, upload it in the week 13 essay. People have done that before. But please, make sure that these 6 things are, well, these 6 things are in that folder. I've had people put their ERD in their PowerPoint presentation, and I've got to go look for it. They put their code in their PowerPoint presentation, and I have to screen scrape it to get it out to work. And if I'm in a bad mood, I'm not going to want to do it. So I just got to be honest. If yours is the 4th project that has done it wrong, I'm going to send you an email going, "Hey, brother or sister, you did this. I can't grade it until you do it. So either take the final exam or send me the code." But don't put it in if the ERD is in that PowerPoint presentation, I can deal with that. But if any of the code stuff is, I can't, because I can't run it and I need to run the code.
So when you submit that, you don't need to take the final exam, right?
Yes, that is correct. You don't need to do
And
both.
there was something else you mentioned you don't need to do every week if you go for the
Right.
project.
The essay.
So
Paper.
the essay. So here, so this is
Essay.
a week 3. Yeah. So if you decide today that you're going to do the final project instead of the final exam, you don't write this essay. Your essay is, and I should add this to the thing, and I might do that. I try not to change the course because they just erase it every semester, and just reset it to the original. But if you're gonna do the project, this week's paper is, "Hey, brother Stevik, I've been thinking about it. I'm going to create a database that tracks my son's little league soccer team's statistics." And you're gonna start going, or here are the 3 ideas I have. I'll let you know next week which I'm gonna go. What do you think I should do? So something along those lines. And the next week, the week after, is like, I've decided this. I've started doing this. So your final papers are just kind of journal entries to me saying, here's where I am in my project. And if you
Okay.
need any help, you say, "Hey, I'm lost here. What the heck should I do?" Stuff like that. So I can look at that and go, we can talk back and forth saying, "Okay, do it this way." Or a lot of people like put their ERDs in there around week or eight or nine for me to look at, and I give notes
Yeah.
on it.
Okay.
So those are the two things. And I'm gonna be honest, like if you decide this week you're gonna do the final project and you start writing the final papers, like, hey, I'm gonna do this, and then week 10 you suddenly realize you don't have time, you've run out of runway to do it, and you do the final exam, that's cool. You're not gonna get in trouble for doing that, for doing these and not doing the actual papers because um that happens sometimes. I mean, I started teaching this class the year before COVID hit. Um, and in the time that I've been teaching this class, I have yet to have a semester where someone doesn't have a spouse or they have a child, someone doesn't have someone die in the family, someone doesn't move. I think I told you guys the first week, I had one student, my third year teaching, he was in Nicaragua and he emailed me that he was hiding under a table while the rebels were attacking his town. I'm like, dude, turn off the light, turn off the computer, get under the table. I'll pass you. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Just don't die. So, I am
That's
more
a
than
good
willing
one.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was when he said that, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. No, I looked him up. He was in Nicaragua. I'm like, more power to you, sir, because you're trying to get past the class while you're being invaded. So, yeah, we actually have students all over the world in these classes. So, um, I am willing to work with you in any capacity to make this work for you. But if you can't do it, I'm not gonna, say, well, now go back and write all 10 essays because obviously you were faking. I trust you guys, so I'm not gonna make you go back and do that. So, all right. So that's the final exam. This is what I expect. It's a lot of fun to do. It's way better than the final exam. It's more work than the final exam because again, remember, the final exam is just the same question bank from the 13 quizzes that led up to the final exam. And the final exam is open notes, open quiz, open test, open whatever, and just take it. It's 2 attempts. Best score wins, and then you're done. So whichever way you want to go. Don't play the game of doing both and see which get the better score, because I'm always tempted to give the person the lower score. But I don't. I should. I sometimes I want to, but I never do. So, and I don't understand why you would do both, unless you like. I'm just gonna phone both in and see which I do the better score on. So. Honestly, most times I just take whatever you got on the final exam because I'm not going to bother grading your project if you didn't, dedicate your time to that. Because it's mostly someone like the last 10 minutes did it. And like it usually is horrible. So, all right. Any questions on the final exam or the final exam slash final project?
So we're
Mm,
supposed to check if we don't do the final exam. We're supposed to check in with you every week. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's
Yep.
like a status report every week, right?
Yep.
So I'm assuming we can send you what we're working on along the way, and if we're steering off course, you're going to steer us back where you want us to go, right?
Yep. And usually it's you. I mean, you have to be pretty much off course for me to say anything to you because as long as I really want you guys to take ownership of this and just do if you like, I'll be honest, if you chose a project and like week 11 you're like I don't know what happened. Nothing is working and blah blah blah. I will say, "Okay, here's what you do. Write up everything you did, figure out where you went wrong and tell me about it." Because that is a valuable learning experience too.
And so that's the best learning experience is
Yeah.
failure.
Yeah. So, this is the I championed getting this in here to give because this has been the database design and administration class for the last 15 years, but there's never been a design element in it. No one's ever designed a database.
That's
So
some
when I
strict
started,
thinking.
yeah, so we put that in there. So yeah, and it's not even that. I mean, you don't have to show me your stuff. Just say this is what I did this week. I had last normally I have at least one guy going, "Hey, it was really busy this week. It was Halloween. I had a Snickers high. I didn't come down until Thursday. I got diabetes now, so I'll be working on it next week." So, you give me 3 or 4 of those in a row, I'm going to say, "Hey, what are you really doing with your time?" But this is not a, it's very not loose requirements, but very flexible requirements to make sure you can do what you need to do and put as much effort into this as you want. So if you want to put your ERDs, you want to put your code in there, you want to put your test cases for me to review, I will absolutely look it over and say, hey, this is a good one. This is not. Starting week 5 or 6, the last half of the class is, does anyone have their ERD they want to share? Anyone question on the final exam? Once my code is done. After I'm done with teaching my code, I turn the floor over to you guys to see if anyone's got anything they want to share to look over. It's a lot of fun sometimes if people are having trouble with their ERD. We crowdsource it, put it up on the screen, and everyone kind of talks about it and does some ideas, some brainstorming with it. It's a lot of fun. So yeah. So that's for the papers. It doesn't have to be, here's what I did. You're not showing me that you did the work this week. You're just telling me, hey, I got this done. I got a little behind on this. I had 2 other assignments I had to do. I didn't get to do it this week. This isn't like like I don't know if y'all wrote research papers in middle school, but like, okay, on September 15th, I want your sources. On September 30th, I want your title page. On October 17th, I want the first two. I don't want that. I just want, tell me what you do. This is how the world works. I look at my team members and say, go figure out a new backup process for Oracle. I don't tell them what specifically to do. I just say, go find something and bring it back to me. You guys have that freedom. I'm trying to make this as real world as possible because it makes more fun for y'all. Any other questions on the final exam? Final
No, I
paper,
just want
rather?
to share like I had like when I started the studying at BYU, I did for different courses. Like speeches when you do a speech on Sunday. I was
Uh-huh.
working on the ward as a secretary and then as a counsel. Then I found that there is no app, for example, to help you assign a speech on Sunday, right?
Uh-huh.
So I modeled many situations. I did like a front end view
Sure.
where you can select like a youth or adult and
Hmm.
what topic. And I'm thinking of modeling that into the
Sure.
database to have
Cool
something that I
idea.
am already working because I
Hmm.
have like a predefined a few screens where you can update someone that can do a that can talk on a Sunday or is too young. So I'm thinking of modeling that into this final project.
You
So
you can even take, because I used to have a spreadsheet. I created an Excel spreadsheet for that because I had the drop downs for all the members and stuff like that. But it was also when they gave the talk, so I knew who, I could tell who hadn't given a talk in a while. I could also track who wasn't allowed to give talks.
yeah,
Um,
so that's something you can update, who can
yep,
talk, who can, is not allowed to talk,
yeah,
or when was the last time
uh-huh.
that person gave a talk, so it won't be the first option for a Sunday. So I don't know. What's a situation that I can implement something like this? So
You know what? Another interesting aspect to that would be if you captured their talk.
Ah.
AI.
If
Yeah,
they
but you know
sent you
what?
a copy of their talk and you put that into the database.
Well, today it is allowed to record
No, no,
the
no, I'm not.
Sacrament
I'm not.
meeting.
No,
So
no, no. I'm not talking recording. Like they send you a Word file or text file of their talk, and you put that in
you
the
can
data.
save it there. Yeah.
Putting a video in a database is bad juju. You don't put text file. You don't put graphics in a database unless you hate
No,
yourself. Then you do it.
I was not talking about
Yeah.
graphic. I was talking about the AI that will convert the
Mhm.
token into
Yeah.
words.
Yeah. Sure.
So
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. If you
yeah.
can do. I mean, I actually we have deaf members of my ward, and we Zoom the meetings like everyone else does.
Yeah.
But I actually figured out how to get the closed captioning so they can sit in the church and still read what's going on. It's
That's
not
cool.
fantastic, but it works. But yeah, but yeah, I think that's a incredibly handy application. I think you should totally make that. I think
Yeah.
if you make
So
that on an application, that's the church will buy it from you, I'm
I
sure.
don't know if I will have like 10 to 12 tables, but I will may need to invent something to get around 10 tables. But
No, you'll get 10.
I
You'll get
will,
10 tables. Just
yeah.
I'm at 7 tables right now, just thinking it.
All right, maybe
Yeah,
we get
because it's
close.
It's person, talk topics, callings, date of talk.
The age, the gender could be also.
That would be in
The person.
yeah, the person table.
Oh,
So
the
that'd be
person.
like, yeah, the age, gender, calling. You'd have a callings table. You'd have um a table for where they belong, like primary or like an organizations table. You have a talk topics table. Um, and you have a table for when the talks were given. Yeah, so I'm like I said, I'm up to 7 tables, so you can get to 10 tables pretty easily with that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And if you hit like 8 or 9 and you top out, that's
What
fine.
musical number? What conference talks? I
Oh
mean,
yeah, yeah. Who else talked that day? What else? Oh, that'd be good. Like, what happened that day? Like who gave a musical number? Was it high
prayers.
council? Was it high council? Prayers? Yeah, that'd be funny if everyone. The things with prayers, you never know who's gonna do it. Whoever shows up that day, you go pray. We, I had when I was ward clerk a couple years ago, I was really um reminding everyone that any baptized member can give a prayer. So I was calling on like 9-year-olds to give the opening prayer. As and
Why not?
well, because there is something simple and pure in the prayer of a 9-year-old that is not as annoying as the prayer of a 90-year-old.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to say, I'm now going to give a talk in my prayer. Because that's what they I didn't get a talk for all this month, so I'm going to give a prayer that's going to talk. So a 9-year-old's going to go up there and I love listening to kids to pray because they'll always pray that we get home safely, even if it's the opening prayer. They'll always pray that we have a good day. They'll always pray uh, that everything will go good. And I love when they bless the food because they forget they're not doing the prayer for food.
What's the sacrament?
Please bless us. Please bless the food. So yeah, kids praying and the current. I was released from the bishopric about 6 months ago, and I just teach the 14-year-olds, which is thank goodness. Bishopric is a
Well,
is
I
I'm
was
on
just teaching
Sunday.
that class. I just got released, though. I'm now the Yellowscorn president.
really.
So,
I'm sorry that happens.
uh,
That is probably the
I'm
only
on
quality.
the
Was
in
that?
the adult class of the Sunday school.
Yeah,
I'm the teacher there, so
yeah,
it's kind of complicated because a lot of people that like to talk and
yeah.
talk. The same person talking like a 3, 4, 5 times at the same
oh, yeah,
meeting. So kind of annoying.
it's okay.
Yeah.
But it's
We just had Fifth Sunday, and it was my turn to teach the adults on Fifth Sunday,
Oh
and
wow.
the topic assigned to us from the stake, and the word was suicide. So I just gave a
oh
50-minute
gosh.
talk on suicide 2 days ago.
Wow.
Oh,
That's intense. I I don't know. I remember when I joined the church when I was 33, so that was 21 years ago, right? Do y'all remember like when each month had a topic?
Oh
And
yeah,
August was always like family and marriage month.
yeah, I remember that.
And if
From
you
the
taught the
Liajona,
youth,
they had a
yeah,
topic for the
yep.
month.
And the third week in August was always law of chastity. And you had to go into the youth and talk about the law of chastity every year. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. And the talks were law of chastity. And I actually, well, I took issue with that because there are a lot of people who were getting divorced or had problems with their marriage. And you're doing, hey, let's celebrate family and marriage. And you're like, this is not going to go over well. I am so thankful they did away with that. That now it's just whatever the bishop thinks is right. It's just so much, meetings have gotten so much better. Now we just need to rein people on a fast and testimony. And
Good luck
my
with
wife,
that.
my wife and I were talking the other day. Both of our first, she's a convert as well. Both of our first meetings were fast and testimony meetings, and I have never brought a convert to a fast and testimony meeting because I think that's a bad idea. Because she's like, "Oh no,
People
the
start giving the adventure of the month, what they did, what happened in the month. So like an outline of everything they have done.
or a travel lesson or whatever, a thankimony or whatever." I remember she was like, "Oh, I loved it. When I got there, I felt the spirit and everything's great." And I'm like, I got there and couldn't figure out why everyone who came up there was freaking crying. I didn't. They would come up there and they were crying when they got up there, and I couldn't understand what they were saying. But all of a sudden, everyone's crying. I'm like, what is this? The Weepy Church? So
There's some
anyway,
truth to that too.
I know, right? And then I remember one time someone came up and like gave a 20-minute testimony on her air conditioner and how thankful it was a miracle that it kept working. I'm like, that's okay.
Good
And
times.
I don't know if you guys live with their hurricanes, but never go to fast and testimony after a hurricane. Never go. Never go there. So, but we got a conference this weekend, so that's good.
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
right.
look,
You're in Florida, but you didn't get the brunt of it, right? On that.
nah, I live in Orlando, and I joke that we live in the Disney bubble. But to get nerdy about the weather, the Gulf Coast is right over the
Yeah,
Central Florida, generally speaking, and everything just gets bounced off. And what happened with Helene, it came in through the west and got sucked up into the Gulf, the Gulf breeze, and it
yeah.
went up and around. I wanted it to hit Tallahassee really bad, but it didn't. Um, and it comes up and around and swooped and came around into Georgia. And we drove up to Georgia this week because our son got sealed in the Atlanta Temple this weekend, and the damage on the road up there was insane. Like so many trees down, so many signs down. And then I have friends who live in North Carolina who like don't have power, and like Asheville, North Carolina's underwater.
Yeah.
It's really it was really bad because they were not prepared for a storm that, and it wasn't even a hurricane when it hit, it was just a tropical storm, but it dropped 25 inches of rain in one day.
Yeah, and because of I heard that some of the contours of the earth there just funneled it into some areas that it was like 1,000-year flood.
Yep.
So
Because that like it's kind of like when it went through, like all the trees that were just kind of hanging on fell because the ground was too soft. The floods just were channeled because they never had this before. Like a friend of mine said they haven't had a storm like that since like 1912. So it's just because it never. I remember like a couple of years ago, like Hurricane Sandy came up. It was like in November, and it missed Florida because the Gulf Stream bounced it off, and it hit New York, and it hit New York is like a low category one. That hits Florida, no one cares. We still go to work. We're still at Disney riding Space Mountain. New York, like houses were down, people were dead,
yeah,
you know. And everyone's Florida's like, oh, they're just making a big deal. It's not big. I'm like, dude, if we had 1 inch of snow in Florida, you would kill yourself. You would know what to do. You'd walk outside, and that would be it. You'd have a heart attack and die in the snow because you don't know what to do with snow because you're a lifelong Floridian. Anyway, I completely digress on that. Anyway, so that's the final project. Okay, so let me talk about the code that I want to talk about this week. Here we are. Okay, so this is I'm gonna rehash some of the stuff we did last week and add some stuff new to it. So last week we talked about the where clause, and we talked about the comparison operators. So there's quality comparison operators and inequality comparison operators. So here's our equality comparison operators: greater than, less than, equal to, greater than, equal to, or equal to. That's our comparison. Their comparison operators. Our non-comparison are the not equals. And there's two. There's that one. You got to be careful with this. So this one is the one that we know, the alligators kissing from second grade math. This one here, the exclamation point equal, that you got to be careful with and try not to use that too often, because I think I told you last week or the week before that T-SQL is the same across every engine that uses it. But there are a couple of minor things that change here and there, like the dialect of SQL. This symbol in Microsoft SQL Server is only for comparing text fields. It will error if you use it to try to compare numbers. This is the symbol for a number comparison, number inequality. This is for text inequality. And in Microsoft SQL Server, don't try to use any of these for text fields, except for the equals. Don't try to use any of those for text fields because it will scream at you. But you can use any of them for here. So to go through this, so here I'm using the film table. I'm getting the title and the length, and I only want where the length is greater than 100. Get this out of my way. Thank you. Come on. There you go. Simple. Here I have a comparison operator and a range operation. I'm sorry, this is two comparisons. Here I've got title, length, and rental rate from the film table, where length is greater than 100 and rental rate is less than 5. Remember, there's two choices. There's and there's or. And means both must be satisfied, or means either may be satisfied. So here, put that there, turn this to an or. Let me do with and. I run this and I get 610 rows returned. Both of them are greater than 100, and all of them are greater than 100, and all of them are less than $5. If I change it to an or, I now have over 1,000 rows returned, because now it's everything. It's either less than 100 or it's either greater than 100 or less than 5. So here, this one is less than 5, but it's 50. But because it meets the criteria, I only want either of them to meet. Okay.
Could be true. Any of those could be true.
Yep.
One or the other.
Yep. One or the other. Yep. So these are my inequality operators. Here I've got in text fields. We know that if I use the equal sign in a text field, whatever's in the quotes must be found exactly. So if I said where that equals hedgehog, whatever column that is, it has to be equal exactly to hedgehog, or it's not going to return anything. So I have ways to do wildcards, and I use the term like instead of equals, because equals means exactly. Here I have select title from film, where title is like a %, which means all I need is anything that starts with an A. And I've got 46 rows that start with an A. Or I can say, show me everything that ends in A. And this is all I care about. And I've got 22 that end in A. If I put a % sign on both sides, just show me something with an A in it, which is probably 90% of what you have. So these queries aren't meant to be functional, just to show you how this stuff works.
What about the case sensitive there? You have an A there in the middle. Won't care if that is lowercase or uppercase letters.
No, it's not case sensitive.
Okay.
T-SQL by default is not case sensitive, and be thankful that it isn't. Oracle used to be case sensitive, and it drove me insane. The first 2 years I taught this class, we used Oracle and not MySQL, and it was case sensitive because in when you install a database engine, at some point in time, it's going to ask you for what you want the format to be, and it's like I forget what they are, but I'll show it to you next time. But you ask what the format, like do you want it case sensitive? Do you want it symbol sensitive? Do you want Latin characters? Do you want stuff like that? And so like in Microsoft SQL world, SharePoint has to have a specific format to its database or it doesn't work. So you do that, but like you can make it case. One is like it's like comma sensitive, case sensitive, whatever it is. So you can make it case sensitive, but by default it's not. So whether this is a lowercase a or a capital A, it's still going to return the same thing.
Okay.
Right. So you don't, yeah. Here again, this is a party trick. I don't know where you'd actually ever use this. Show me films where title is like, I want it to start with an A. I don't care what the second letter is. I want the third letter to be an A. I don't care what the fourth letter is. I want the fifth letter to be an E, and then I don't care what follows it. So, and there's only two things that match that particular thing. So you can use the % sign as a wildcard for anything, or you can use the underbar for replacing one or more letters, because I could do two underbars into two spaces. That would be like, this query would be used if like you were on your page, like someone's doing a search and didn't know what it was, and they're trying to get something that was like, so you could like fill that in and make it so it's like percent signs and wildcards and stuff like that. Okay, so and then for every one we have an opposite. So here, select title from film where title is not like the. So it shows me everything where the word the does not start it. Show me everything where the film length is not equal to 100. Shows me 998 rows. I've got range comparison operators where length is between 50 and 100.
So that would be the length of the title.
Yep. No, the length of the movie. So if you look at the film table over here, there's a length column.
Okay.
And that's the length of the film, not the length of the column. That's a whole there is a way to find out how many characters are in a title, but
Yeah.
that's
I was
literally part
referring
of
to the
Trickster.
table.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
This is just the table length here, this one here, how long the movie is. So show me where films between 50 and 100 minutes. And that shows me there. Okay. So now a subquery is whenever you take a query and put it into another query, which makes perfect sense right now. Why would you subqueries? So here I've got select title from film where length equals, select length from film where title equals Academy Dinosaur. So when I run that on its own, it gives me 86. So this is basically saying, show me every film with a length that's 86. Now, why would I do this? Because in a greater picture of things, I don't want a static query. I don't want to say where length is 86. I want to be able to put something else in there. And if I have a subquery, I can have it to where like, I could do like a sales query, like show me all sales that were on this day. And I could have the subquery saying select whatever today is or whatever yesterday was. So it's a dynamic query in there. So it's not the same thing every time. When we use subqueries, it gives some dynamics to our queries. Here I have in, this one is equal, so it has to be. There can only one value return from this for equal. If there's more than one, this is going to freak out saying, hey, there's more than one value. I don't know what to do. This one here, selecting where length is in this subquery. So here, just show me the length from films where the first letter is A and the third letter is A. And I run that, it gives me 12 results. So now I have to use the in command as opposed to equal because I'm putting an array into the query. So when I run this whole thing, and now anything that is 86, 12, 116, 63, whatever it is here. And those are the only ones that show up. I'm going pretty fast for these. We doing okay?
So I had a question on the in command. So that allows you to basically like select a value that's from the following array or from the following list. Is it considered better form to use in instead of just continually build out a whole bunch of and clauses?
Yes. Yes.
Because they do the same thing. In is just faster, more effective, more efficient, right? Is that the idea?
Yeah. It also the other thing is when you're looking, if you do a bunch of and clauses, every and clause. Okay. Deep dive time. Buckle your seatbelts. Whenever you run a query, it converts it into machine code.
Yeah.
And I told that last week. And what happens is it generates something called an execution plan. An execution plan is basically a map on how the database is going to run that query. and it says, I do this, I do this, I do that, I do, and you follow it down. I don't think you can find execution plans in my, at least I haven't found it yet. But when you do execution plan, it'll show this. So what happens in an execution plan, it shows you every step it took, how long it took, and what percent of the process that particular step was. Okay. So if I ran a query that was 85 lines and it was running slow, if I looked at the execution plan, I could see where the slowness was because there'd be one part that was taking 45% of the time, and that shouldn't be. Okay.
Right.
And the reason I bring that up is so if I run this, my execution plan is going to have two things, this
Yeah,
and
there's
this.
the devised table, right?
Right. So this is going to run fast because there's only two things that are happening. If I ran this and where length equals this and length equals this or a length equals this, every and or in that where clause is a different step in the execution plan, and it's another scan of the table.
Okay. Yeah, because I noticed when I did one of the sample exercises last week, I made it with doing an and, but the solution guide used an in. And so I guess generally speaking, if you can use in, that is the preferred method, and that's what we should be using. Okay.
And that's you should be using. I mean, my favorite thing about databases is every question always starts with it depends. So is there a reason why you'd use like three ands as opposed to an equal or an in? Yeah. Or three ors instead of an equal or an in? Yeah. I can't think of hands, but that's the joy and the flexibility of writing the code.
Okay.
So you can say you even do like where length in and where title, something like that. So there's ways to do it. But when you're doing something like you're throwing an array into a query, it's usually everything is from the same table. Or you can write a query that does it. It's just generally easier to do that. It's less code. And that's the code for today. So really not a whole lot of new stuff covered this last week. This is just a refresher, which you're gonna tackle this week. Next week is the start of joins, and that's fun. Joins are where great things and terrible things can happen at the same time. Because when you join like 6 tables together, you kind of get lost. You got to be careful when you're joining it. All right. That's my code. That's my spiel for today. Any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, anecdotes, wonders, inquiries? Sweet. So next week, meet again, 9:30. We're going to do the week 4 stuff. We're going to talk a lot about joins. And next week, if everything goes according to plan, we're going to start designing a database together. Oh, I said I was going to show you. Let me show you something real quick. So let me open up one of my models from forever ago. That's not a good one. Open model. NASA? I think that's a good one. Recover. Okay. So I did this. This is a database I designed, one of my classes. I just have it around. So this is an ERD. These are the tables. These are the columns. These are the foreign key constraints between them. When you're doing stuff like this, just so you can know here, you go over like when you're doing key constraints, you design the table and you go over here and you've got this is a one-to-one relationship. This is a one-to-many relationship, and this is a many-to-many relationship. I've looked into why it's a dotted line versus a solid line. There's a reason. It's not something that's important enough for me to remember. So it doesn't matter which one you use. So if I want a one-to-one relationship to this table to this table, I'll go here and make a one-to-one relationship. If I want a one-to-many relationship, I'll go here, grab this, and do that. In databases, the greatest evil is many-to-many relationships.
You gotta have a linking table.
And here's the interesting thing. So if I want to, like, let me, do I have anything that would do that? Yes. Okay. So I think, yeah. So here. So I've got a missions table and I've got an astronauts table. Now, one astronaut can go on many missions. One mission can have several astronauts. So these two tables have a many-to-many relationship. If I choose the many-to-many relationship here and click on these two tables, it creates a middle table. So this table is one to many, this table is one to many, and we avoid the many-to-many between the two tables. And just a little deep dive here, if you'll notice, whenever you look at the table, that first one with the little key, that's your primary key. If you'll notice here, both the columns have a key. So these are those two columns together, your primary key. A table can have up to 3 columns in one primary key. The only requirement is that it's always unique. You can never have the same primary key, so it's got to be the same, different. So here's this. If I go over here to model, nope, if we go here to database, I got forward engineer. This is all just click next. Anything you want to skip the creation of, anything you want to drop, next. I want to export all 7 tables. You don't have any views, any routines, any triggers. If you had them, they would be there. Click next. And there is the code to create the database. And this is what you send me. You copy to clipboard, you put it into your thing, you run it to make sure it works, and then you send it to me. Okay, that's forward engineering. It's this makes it so easy for you. It's just super easy. It's just super easy. When we look at over here, if you right click the table and go here to send a SQL editor, you can have it generate a blank statement for you. An insert statement, update statement, delete statement, and you just have to fill in the blank. Okay, so this is really designed to make your life easy. Okay. I was thinking I wanted to show you guys because I said we were going to show you this earlier in the night. So there's your ERD. Forward engineer. If you have just the code, you can reverse engineer and it'll turn it into the ERD. So you can literally go to a database, have it scripted itself out, and then put it into here and make the ERD from it. If you start with a new company and you're dealing with a database that there is no diagram for, all you got to do is script it out and put it in here in a reverse engineer. Also, if I'm not mistaken, is this one fancy enough to do it? Next. Yeah. So here, it'll just find one of the ones that are there, and you click Sakilla, and you click next. And it creates the ERD for you from the existing database. So a lot of fun stuff you can play with. All these things, and you got your indexes and your triggers. This is like, we don't talk about anything about indexes. We'll talk a little about indexes. I have a whole thing I just really do on indexes and how they work, but we don't get into a lot of talk about this stuff.
So is that what's in the next course in the learning plan, the SQL programming? Is that like stored procedures and stuff like that?
Yeah. I don't think any course we have gets this deep into like execution plans and stuff. But yeah, the next one is like stored procedures and stuff like that. And just spoiler alert, when you're writing a stored procedure, and now that's a stored procedure. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, but that's a simple stored procedure. So when you're writing a stored procedure, just write the query for what you want it to do, and then just add create proc and give it a name. But if you're doing variables and stuff, it gets a little more complicated. But yeah, that's what the next one's about.
That's next semester. Right.
Yeah, I keep asking to teach that class. Maybe one day they'll let me teach that class, but I'm happy teaching this class. I actually every year I apply to teach the drama classes because that's what my master's degree is in acting.
Well, when we get stuck in our programming homework next work, we'll look you up on LinkedIn.
So, but in all honesty, the last class I give you all my contact information. So this industry is all about connections and who you know. Like, my company constantly looks for interns. So if I have an intern opening and you want to work for a company called Leidos, I'll get you that information, you know. But no, like keep my contact information. I have people who I haven't talked to in like 10 years, but I'll ping them if I have a problem with the database and ask them the question. So it's all about networking in this job. It's not about what you know. It's about how you know where to find it. So that's just the way it works. But yeah, absolutely. Next semester, if you got problems, ping me. I'm more than happy to answer you. All right. If there's nothing else, we're 3 minutes over. So y'all have a great night, great rest of your week. I will see you guys on Tuesday. This will go up in the next little bit. You don't need to watch the video, but I do have the AI translation that's out there too. That's kind of fun to add. All right, guys.
Thank you.
Take care. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Russ.